Good day, everybody, and I would like to welcome you all to the final edition of Voices of Change, proudly hosted by Vodacom. This virtual event is brought to you by Accenture, Business Engage, and Nedbank, with support from Vodacom, Anglo Ashanti, Carney, Pfizer, Celsi, the London Stock Exchange Group, and AECI. My name is Buhle Sibeko, and it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, a remarkable leader who has persevered and achieved incredible success in the world of finance. She has worked across diverse industries in South Africa and abroad. She is a leader, a mentor, a coach, and most importantly, she is a mother and a wife. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Zukiswa Phillips, Managing Executive at Vodacom for data governance and analytics, financial planning, and analysis. Today, you can look forward to inspiring, engaging discussions and a touch of entertainment as Zukiswa shares her perspective on leading from a place of service and not status. Before I hand over to Zukiswa, here are some house rules. Please keep your microphone on mute. And you will may I please kindly ask you share all your questions on the chat box. And once Zuki is done with her talk, we will then go through all your questions. Hopefully, we'll get through all your questions. And if not, we'll try by all means to answer the questions on email. Welcome, Zukiswa. It's an honor to have you with us, and we're excited to learn from your journey. Over to you, Zuki. Thank you.
You're on mute, Zuki.
You're on mute, Zuki.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Of course,
Okay.
It happens when you don't want it to. Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to be part of this amazing session. I do hope that whatever I have to say will just be an encouragement, but also will just leave us a bit of challenge to us as leaders and the people that we lead. So the topic that I chose, as Buhle has said, speaks to basically looking at leadership from a place of service rather than a place of authority or a title. So that is what I would say, what I subscribe to, the leadership style that I subscribe to. It's about putting the needs of others first. It's about helping them grow and perform to the best of their abilities in order for them to be able to shine. And that's what I have, and I continue to try and do as I continue to lead my teams and many teams. And some of that is coming from how I have been led by some amazing leaders in my career, which seems to be long. I mean, I couldn't imagine myself saying I've got an over 2 decades worth of a career, but I actually do. But I've had really great experiences. So what I want to challenge us to think about, so what I do as a leader is first I want to say I put purpose over position. And what does that look like? It's about really making sure that I understand that actually leadership is a responsibility, not just a rank. It is about making sure that the people that are under me as a leader, they not only thrive, but they grow and get to be able to transform their own careers. And in this ever-changing world, the digital world we're under, I want to build a digitally curious team so that they're not looking at the change as a threat to their careers, but as long as they're curious, as long as they're willing to learn and try different things, it means that it helps them in their own lives, but also it helps the organizations that they work for to not only thrive, but to be more effective and more efficient. So it's really about pushing the idea of who am I actually lifting versus who reports into me. And an example of that is my team that I lead currently, and it's it's been something that I've continued to do in my past. So in this conversation, it's a conversation where I'll also give you some examples. They know that they can come to me and have those conversations. They call me out where I'm wrong. Nobody's afraid to tell me what's going on. Nobody's thinking, oh gosh, I can't say anything to Zuki, because I've decided that psychological safety is important. And all of us speak about psychological safety, but actually, what does it mean in action? Example, when a team member decides they want to leave my team, first, I know not to take it personally. It's not about me. In fact, I celebrate with them. But I have told them, once you're ready to leave, please let's have a conversation. The conversation is more about they can trust me to say, I'm not sure this role is actually the right role for you. I'm not sure you are ready to move. Or actually, this is great for you. I think you should do it. But ultimately, they know the decision is theirs to make. But them coming to me, and when I said it to my team, I'm like, it's an open door policy. But actually, when the rubber hits the road, does Zuki actually show up in the way that she says she'll show up? So when you sit down and you say psychological safety, things like that, where your team feels like I can go to Zuki and actually have this conversation, and I know that ultimately she won't judge me, she will listen to me, she will give me her opinion, but ultimately I make the decision. In terms of psychological safety, there's different descriptions or definitions of psychological safety, but there's one that I like from an author, Timothy Clark, where he defines it, and I'll read it here. He says psychological safety is a condition in which a human being feels included. They feel safe to learn, safe to contribute, safe to challenge the status quo without fear of embarrassment, being marginalized, or punished in some way. And as leaders, we have to build a space where our teams are able, because if they're not safe to say what is happening, it means mistakes could be happening around you that you never get to know because you've not opened up this space that they can actually say what is happening without fear of actually being embarrassed. Like my team knows I hold them accountable. When we need to deliver, we deliver. When we make mistakes, they know when they make mistakes, I will call them out on the mistake. Me and them, when I'm sitting with Bushe, me and you will have our conversation of what you have done. But when I come out of that room and I sit in front of my boss, my leader, Bushe is behind me. I stand in front because in my mind, the buck stops with me. Bushe knows that we've had a conversation and I've said my words. She knows what she needs to fix. She knows what she needs to do differently. But I make sure I protect my team. I make sure that I do not humiliate them. I make sure, and I said to them, I will never shout at you because I don't understand there's never a reason for anybody to shout at anybody. Like, nobody here is my child. Even at home, my kids don't like to be shouted at. So I would never shout. So they know if we have an issue, come to my office, let's have the discussion. So that speaks to the other part of empathy and humanity. We need to understand that people are actually people. Stop treating people as if they just roles. They are human beings first. They feel things. And therefore, the question then I ask myself is, in the time of crisis, when people think about me, what is it that they're going to think of? How did I actually make them feel? And that becomes very important in how I show up as a leader. The empathy that I show towards them, the empathy that I show when they are going through stuff to make sure that they know that I can support them. Then the next one is about empowerment. I can't speak hard enough about this. As leaders, we need to empower our teams. We need to make sure that they're able to stand by themselves. They need to be able to succeed without you there. They need to be able to hold their own. And how do you do that? For me, I need to make sure that I give them skip level opportunities, every opportunity that I get, because those skip level opportunities give them the freedom and the confidence to be able to report and be able to speak in rooms that if I am not there, this work shouldn't stop. They should be able to stand by themselves and actually be able to report whatever it is that's reported. So my team is very empowered. I went through a month where I couldn't be at work this year. So I'm just giving you a personal experience. I went through a month where I couldn't be at work because of a health scare. Not once did I receive a call from anybody at work. Why? Because I have a team that could stand and hold the fort. I came back and I was like, oh my gosh. And at the time, I didn't even realize what I was doing, what I was building towards, what I was preparing for. When I came back, I was like, I couldn't help but just be grateful. But they then reminded me, they said, but Zuki, you've allowed us to be able to do this because you did not let us shrink. In fact, you always made sure that you put us forward. When we deliver, you are the one that is the biggest supporter, saying, this is the person who delivered. When something goes wrong, you show up in front of us and just hold the fort for us and protect us. So that is an encouragement to say, empower your teams. It is not, you should be confident enough in your leadership, in your position, in who you are, to not feel like empowering your team means that you become irrelevant. In fact, for me, I do not want to be indispensable. I do not want to have a job forever because I'm the only person that they can depend on to do this job. That is the biggest mistake that I think a leader can make. You want to be able to make sure that you can actually grow yourself out of a job by making sure that you raise other leaders out after you. Stewardship, that's another important part of being a leader. How are you stewarding the people that have been entrusted to you? How are you making sure that you are taking care not only of them as resources, not for your department, but actually for the whole organization that you have? My passion, as you said, is mentoring, is coaching. And part of why I do that is because in my mind, succession planning is very critical, is important for Vodacom. So I could be, whoever I'm speaking to, I'm thinking, when you are looking for somebody to replace, or in my team, when I'm looking for somebody to replace, guess what? There's somebody I was mentoring and I know what they are capable of. I know what their strengths are. I know what the opportunities are for us to grow. So those are the people that you then are able to say to a colleague and say, you know what, you're looking to replace this person. How about Buhle? Because I've walked a journey with the person. How do I do it for my team to make sure that when they say, listen, I'm ready, I want to move to another department, how do I support them with HR to say, listen, this person, I think they could be able to do that. So when you're stewarding the resources that you have been given for not just for yourself, but making sure that as a business, we get to thrive as a business by actually retaining the skills that we have in the organization. And really, it's about making decisions today for the future so that you can actually be grateful, and the future for people to be actually thankful that they met you as a leader. I started this conversation, I said, I'm standing here because there's people that I learned from, that I was able to say I can emulate and say, this person was actually somebody I looked up to, and I knew this is what I wanted to do as a leader. And I knew that I wanted to be better. I knew that for my team, I want them, when I'm not in a room, I want them to be able to say, you know what? This is what Zuki actually did for us. I'll give another example about how you make people feel better, how you support people in their journey, and how you take them out of a place of disappointment, because we do sometimes inherit teams that are actually not engaged, teams that have actually experienced not great, that have not had great experiences. I joined in one of my the organizations I worked for. When I joined, it was a team that was really, really disengaged, and that was the first thing I was told by the person who was handing over to me, that really there's disengagement, people are not happy, and as she was handing over, the first thing I said to her was, please do me a favor. Do not give me, so normally somebody will hand over and start saying, Buhle, this is what Buhle needs to work. This is what Buhle is like. This is what she's working on, this is what Zuki's on. And I said to her, in your handover, I don't want to know, please don't give me anything about the team. So, and I'll explain why I did that. I said, don't tell me anything about any of the team members. And the reason I was doing that, whether we like it or not, as individuals, your impressions they will get impacted by what people say. And for me, it was important that I make my first impression, not based on what I was told by this person, but based on what the people actually told. So it actually forced me to sit with them one by one. And I sat with them and I said to them, you are coming here to me. And I was honest to them and I said, I don't know anything about you. You have a clean canvas. You are going to tell me about yourself. You're going to tell me what your struggles are, and I'm going to start painting a picture. And I told them, I said, I did not ask for this from your previous leader because I wanted to know it for myself so that I don't form opinions about you in order to then, because it's hard to then change your opinion when somebody has said anything. So they did that. And I think, I'll be very honest, I think doing that with them changed how they saw me first. Because there was this feeling of, because everybody when you join is like, we want to see what she's going to be like. So I did that with them individually. Then what I then did, I then followed up when we now had a team meeting. We went into a boardroom because I had now already gotten individual views of who's who in the zoo, understood how everybody felt, and I could pick up, because you can also pick up. So I also did psychology, so I can also pick up the dynamics as well, who gets on and why they don't get along. So in my mind, I also form opinions. Then I get into a room, we had a meeting, we get into a room, I then ask them to all sit on the opposite side, all of them. So it was a boardroom, but I refused for anybody to sit near me. So I sat this side and I asked everybody to sit opposite me. And I had a scarf at the time. So I took my scarf. It just so happened to be a sandy scarf, like beige looking scarf. I put it across the table. And I said to them, we are right now, this is the line in the sand we are drawing. And I then said to them, based on where you guys are, based on where you guys have come from, I am new here. I cannot carry the burdens of the past. I want to move forward. If you are willing to move forward and we build a team together with me saying this is what I will do and promising what I'm promising, if you are willing and you're saying you are willing to do that, it means you are willing to let go of everything and you're going to cross this line. And then one by one, and I asked them, why are you crossing the line? So it was not enough that you just come and cross the line. What are you leaving behind? So that now all of us in the room know exactly what were the things that you were holding on to that were frustrating you. So I said, you are crossing the line because of X, Y, and Z. And by the end of that session, it was the most emotional session I've had because people really, really felt safe. They opened up and there was no judgment or anything, but we left that room. I remember the scores that came out, the engagement scores that came out after when we now did these guys were sitting below 50th percentile. I had the highest engagement scores. When they did my engagement scores, I went all the way up to 80, 90s. And I believe it was just simply because I decided I will treat them as individuals and I will treat them as humans and not let the opinion of somebody else and not view them from the eyes of somebody else who has had her own experience. I had not had any experiences, so I needed to have my own experiences. In order to do that, I needed a clean slate, and we were able to do that. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that humility, I was actually coming to a point of being courageous, the humility, because courage is actually, it's not an easy thing as a leader to be able to stand up and say, I'm not going to listen to you. You are the leader that was here, but actually I don't want to hear anything about what you have to say. Not because I'm not being mean or anything. And I'm sure, I don't know how she felt. She didn't say, I just said it to her, but it was me being courageous to say, I'm going to stand up and believe that these people need a second chance, and I'm going to give them a second chance. And part of being courageous is also not having an ego, knowing when to say you don't know, knowing when to say I'm sorry, knowing when to say I was wrong, and most importantly, knowing when to say I need help. My team knows. I tell them all the time, guys, I am not an expert in a lot of things. When I don't know, I don't know, and I'll tell them, hey, I don't know. I will go and research where I need to research, but I also, they are here, they're experts in whatever they're experts. So it's very important that you recognize people as the experts they are and give them the homage. So for me, no issues. Being able to say you're sorry. Those are the 4 things. Being able to say you're sorry as a leader, being able to say I was wrong, being able to say, actually, I don't know, let me find out. And being able to say, I need help, because it means that you don't know everything, and it makes you human, because we are human. It is not about status, because now I said I was sorry, does it mean now I am less of a leader? No, it's not. Because now I said I actually don't know, does it mean that I don't know what I'm doing, the position that I'm in, I did not deserve? No, because it shows humility, and that in itself is courageous. And part of being courageous as well is standing up when you see some of our leaders doing what is not right. That also is being courageous as a leader. When you feel like, no, my friend, I don't think this was actually right. You may not be the most popular, I guess, but again, courage. That's what it is about, right? Stepping out and actually saying, listen, I'm going to stand up. I mean, we are 16 days of activism. Part of why we are where we are today is because people don't speak up. People have friends that they know are doing stuff to their girlfriends, their children, their wives, and they're standing there and doing absolutely nothing, saying nothing. And it takes courage for somebody to say, no, you can't, you have to stop. And therefore, I'm challenging ourselves as leaders that where you can see unfair treatment of people, call it out, because that is your responsibility. That is the responsibility of building a culture of people that are actually happy at work, that feel safe in their jobs and their positions. And also be available as a leader, to be a mentor, to be a coach. I mean, as I said, I love mentoring. I enjoy it. I actually don't know how many people I'm mentoring, because I don't know how to say no. But for me, it's fulfilling for me to walk a journey with someone and then see them thrive and see them make decisions, and then they come back to you and say, you know what, when we spoke about this is what happened, this is what I'm seeing. That for me makes me happy. So again, a challenge is, let us be that to our teams, but let us be that to other teams that don't necessarily sit in our spaces, so that we can actually build resilient team players. I've spoken about protecting, what we would say, protecting the underdog, standing up for those people that actually need our help the most, and making sure that we are present as well when help is required. Whenever I get asked what type of a leader you are, I always say I consider myself a situational leader, meaning I change as the situation changes. The situation changes with my team, because what a person today, how they were reporting, how they were delivering today, could change tomorrow. They could be the top performer. They could be doing really, the lights out, and something changes in their lives. And tomorrow they are no longer performing at that level. As a leader, I need to be able to know that there has been a change, and therefore that situation has changed. I need to be able to unpack and understand what has happened. You were here, you were a top performer. You don't just stop being a top performer. What is happening? That engagement with your team is being able to understand what's happening. How do we take you out of the space of where you are, or how do I support you in this journey so that you can get back? So the situation changes in how I manage that person, how I lead that person. I now need to lead them from a place of trying to quote unquote, rehabilitate them back to who they are, versus now, because you stopped being a top performer, I'm now going to mark you are not performing, non-performing. But why are you non-performing? We as leaders, do we understand why this person is actually non-performing? I mean, a lot of people were impacted by COVID. A lot of people had experiences from COVID. For me, that was the best time of actually experiencing the situation of leadership, because that's where we needed to change how we were thinking, how we were leading, and therefore you were able to pivot, because now you're saying, okay, the situation has changed. How do I pivot and how do I do things differently? That actually supports the team. So yeah, I think I've been a bit faster than I was supposed to be, but I actually do have, and Wufe, you'll guide me here, but I do have a call to action for us as leaders, I guess, asking ourselves the questions of, in terms of how many people, it's not about how many people actually report to me, it's how many people are actually better because of me. That's one of the things that I challenge myself on. And then, can you, as a leader, be a leader without the title? Can you be with that leader without that title? Because it's not about the title, it's about how you show up, how you make the people feel, how you make people feel. Does it require title? No. And last one, when your name is mentioned in rooms that you are not in, what do people say happened? Because you were in their lives as a leader. And in reflection, so my closing reflection is, true leadership is not about being the light at the front. It's about lighting others so they can lead when you're gone. Thank you.
Thank you much, Zukiswa. That was inspiring and a very remarkable talk. I just wanted to ask if there are any people who would like to ask questions or feedback. Doesn't necessarily have to be a question, it could be a feedback, or you could even share an experience, a personal experience that you have had in probably a leadership role where you had to now become a situational leader, or an experience whereby you were probably led in a situation of, in a space of, you were led by a leader who led with status. So I'm not sure, are there any hands? Do you guys would like to ask any questions? Would you like to give feedback? Okay. There's a question from, take it away. Colleen.
Hi. Sorry, I'm not putting my camera on, as I mentioned. Zukiswa, I think as a recommendation that you gave us to not get to know the team from somebody else before you walk in, that for me has been the highlight of the session. I think as a leader, I think so many of us are so quick to get so much information beforehand, just because we're scared of making a mistake when we start. And I think for you to actually challenge us to do that has been one of the best lessons I've learned this year. So thank you for that. Just in terms of your prep for that session, I mean, I know you went in totally fresh, but what were some of the questions that really allowed you to set the scene for that session, that guided your thought process for that session, so that you yourself could understand the team you were working with?
Thanks, Colleen. So I think, the first thing that in my mind, so when I joined, I think when you come into a place where there's the reception, you can feel the heaviness. So before I even understood what was happening, I just felt the heaviness. A new person comes into the role, and then you're feeling this heaviness in the team, right? So the first thing is, there's a question in my mind, is the heaviness coming from somebody who applied for the role, they didn't get it, so they are being heavy. So I'm now trying for myself to make up some story of what is happening in this space. Before I can even do that, this lady had started and saying, oh no, the team is not engaged. So I quickly then thought, oh, okay, this makes sense why I felt this heaviness. So I then said, okay, cool, that's great. Let's stop it there. I then went away, because remember now she's doing her handovers and everything with me. We've already decided we're not doing the people one. I went back home and I was like, okay, fine. How am I going to do this? Because now I made a decision not to hear, because remember, I was quite fast in saying, okay, I don't want to hear. I didn't plan it. I just felt I didn't want to hear it. I don't know why. So I went back home and I said, okay, fine. What exactly what am I looking for to make sure? Because what needs to happen is, first, the person who's sitting next to me has to feel like they can trust me to be able to open up. And I'm new, barely a month in, and I'm saying to them, you're coming. So the first thing that I think opened up a little bit of trust was me saying, opened it up like that. And I say, you are coming to me. And I literally have a clean canvas. So think about a clean canvas. You are going to paint on this canvas for me. I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen to who you are. So, Sandra, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is what I would like to be about. And I was honest and I said, I understand from the leader that's leaving that there is something here in the team. I have felt it. So this is me being honest. So I'm a very honest person as well. I've felt it. I am now saying, Sandra, I want to know who is Sandra and how does Sandra fit in to this team, and what is Sandra's part in this disengagement of the team. So those are the things that I asked the team basically. This is who I am. I'm new. I'm just here to learn, to understand. You are going to paint a story and a picture for me, but know that I have no clue. So whatever you tell me is literally going to be what I take with me. So if you tell me little, then I go in with nothing. So I think that conversation for me is what I actually was able, and quite amazingly, people started really having those conversations, starting it light. This is me. I'm a mother. I have children. Like, it starts like that because I started mine like that. This is me. I've got 2 kids. Joke about how they are. This is, opened it up like that. So almost giving them that freedom to then also go in. And then we started unpacking the questions. And where I had more questions to ask to fill in the gaps, I would then ask and say, please, can you explain to me? And they were honest. And some of the honesty was a bit of pointing fingers, right? And I would write it down. Remember, I was not here to judge. The time for me to judge now came when I was now asking people to cross over. Because now what I was looking for was, when you said something about Mushe and said, Mushe is this, I'm now expecting you to be saying, I'm crossing over because I'm actually going to think differently and I'm going to do things differently in how I treat my relationship with Mushe. So that's all I was doing. It was there for me to listen and ask nothing and judge no one. That's how I did it. I hope it answers your question.
Great. Thank you, Zuki. You remind me of what we normally say. We experience people differently. And I think that's the takeaway from me. I had a hand up from Tracy. I'm not sure if she's still online. Tracy, I think you wanted to ask a question or share feedback.
Yeah, I actually just wanted to say that what you've said today totally resonates with me as well. So thank you for sharing that with everybody else, because it's not always easy to do. But I also just wanted to share something going back many years, like over 3 decades. The one manager, I did not report to him, but I worked with him very closely on a project that I was working on. And he was the most awesome, I wouldn't say he was a manager, even though he was classified as a manager. He was more of a leader, because he made you want to do things and do them right. And I even named my oldest son after him, just because of the respect that I had for him and how he made the project that we were working on. It just became alive, and we were all vibrant and all working together. We didn't have any hassles with anybody with personality clashes or anything. We all just worked together so beautifully. And it was because of that that my son got named after him. So I just wanted to share that.
That's amazing. I don't know if there's anybody named after me, but maybe it's still coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Trace, with us. I've got a question on the chat, and the question is, what is the toughest lesson you've learned as a leader, and what were the key takeaways that you've applied or will apply from it?
So I had to learn the hardest as a new leader a while back, where I was recruiting for a role, and so we were doing this. It was something quite interesting that we had never done before. We ended up with, so part of our recruitment, we did it as a, what do they call it? The dating, speed dating. So the HR team brought in, we all had roles, and then they would come in and then we do a speed dating particular. So there was finance, there was F&B and all of that. So I then get all these different people. But because it's speed dating, you can hear people talking, right? So this guy comes and interviews the most bubbly person, the most, like present, answering, da 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 da. Literally, I'm getting excited. I'm like, this person is gonna good at my team. In fact, one of my other leaders that was also recruiting comes to me and says, no, that's the one. So like, I'm like, yeah, this is the guy. I employ the guy. Oh my gosh. The absolute disappointment, I'm sorry to say, he was literally just all talk and nothing else. Like I had to put this guy on a PIP. I had to run this process, and it was a tough one because I'd never done that before. Now I'm having to look at myself and actually say, Zuki, what went wrong here? And the honest truth is I had to own up and say, did you actually interrogate everything and be sure that technically this person was the right person, or you just looked and were excited by this excitement? That's all he was just excitement. And I had to make a decision and say, my guy, I'm sorry, you are going to have to leave. And I had to run this PI, because obviously you have to run the PIP process. If anybody has done a PIP process, it's quite taxing on you as well. But I remember I learned from that day that it is not how loud the person is, the substance. In fact, the person I employed after him, very quiet guy. Even our HR person was like, no, Zuki, I don't think they can do the job. He was the best person for the job. So I learned from there that, but I owned the responsibility that I actually shouldn't have made that decision. So therefore, what I was going through was all because I did it to myself. But I was able to then come out on the other side by saying, I've learned this. And many times I've had to have the tough conversations. If somebody's not performing, if you're not performing, we must have the tough conversations. If you can't improve, then we must actually get to a point where we say, maybe it's not, you are not, this department is not for you. Let's help you find something in another department. Those are tough decisions to make for a leader. It's not easy for any leader to have a conversation saying, you are not a fit here, or you can't do the work, you are not delivering, you keep on missing deadlines. You must then walk the journey with the person. You can't, as a leader, bury your head in the sand, because one person who does not deliver has an impact on everybody else who's watching this person not delivering. And unfortunately, there is no way the person who's not delivering is not going to now all of a sudden overnight change and start delivering. What unfortunately ends up happening is the ones that were top performing will start dropping their standard. And that can be dangerous for your team, because there's this feeling of iniquity where they're like, but I can see Zuki gets away with it. So why should I be killing myself? So as a leader, it's very important that you nip it in the bud. When you see non-performance, let it be clear that you are dealing with that non-performance, so that everybody else does not feel had done. Like, I can't see why I'm putting in the effort when somebody else I can see. So those are the tough decisions that I've had to make.
Thank you, Zuki. Lerato, I hope it answers your question. And the takeout here for me is, do not judge a book by its cover. I've got another question from Seni. And the question is, did you finally get the team engaged? And what was the process?
Okay. So I did. So I explained that the process where I sat with them in the room, we drew a line in the sand and agreed that we are leaving everything on the other side. Everybody who crosses over to my side is we're on the same team and we're going to take this team forward. And I saw that from my team engagement scores. As I said to you, they were sitting under the 50th, but they were doing their engagement tool was Gallant, and they were sitting under the 50th percentile, around 50th percentile. By the time we had journeyed together, when we then did the engagement, what do they call it? The surveys, I had gone up to about 80, 85%. So for me, that was a big, big shift that spoke to, I mean, I would have been fine with 60, 65 because you are coming from a team that was that disengaged, but you get to over 80%. That's how I knew that we engaged. And we engaged, I mean, you would engage in just doing things together. So we had to put things in place. How do we do things together? But also, how do we call each other out? When somebody is doing something that you can see that is not building the team, how do we call each other out respectfully? How do we, and also we saw that some people did not last in the team because just by virtue of if somebody is toxic and everybody else is now, because now the toxicity is revolving around one person, everybody else changes their toxicity. You might be the one that becomes the odd one out. Then you just decide, you know what, this is not where I want to be. That happened as well, but ultimately the team itself, really engaged team. I left that team completely different from what they were. I mean, I joined a team where nobody wanted the role that I had. So I joined, and when I was asking to see, okay, successor in my team, who? They were like, no, not interested. No, not interested. And I'm sitting there thinking, guys, no, I'm not sitting here forever. But as I journeyed with them, I identified who were the possible people that could take over. I started walking a journey with them. Today, one of the people that said, I don't want your role is the person that took over that role.
Wow. Wow, that is fantastic. And I've got a question from Sandra, and it's in the chat. She says, thank you for the lovely session, Zuki. The question from her is, much there is no true thing as work-life balance. How do you keep the balance between being a mom, a wife, as well as a managing executive?
So one of the leaders that I learned this from, that one of the leaders I was mentioning as one of the people I learned from, there's a lady called Jo Paul. I learned from her where she said it is not work-life balance, but it is work-life choice. And how I understood and what it meant for me was that you make choices depending on which stage of your life you are in. The myth of balance is that, a myth. There's a choice you make when you are early in your career. You are still young, want to get married, have children. That's completely different to how you show up when you are now in different levels where you are now trying to grow your career and be something. When you're growing your career, you growing your career, you focusing on that. And therefore, there's a high likelihood that it will feel like there's no balance. But it gets to a point where I've got children. I need to change and make different choices to make sure that I'm available for those kids. So you make a choice, I think, if we could make choices earlier on, and I know it doesn't work, it sounds, I'm making it sound easy, like I can make a decision like, okay, I want to get married at 25, then from 25 to 30, I want to build my career. But that's what I did. I remember I got married. I'm old. I'll be married 20 years this year, so that's how long. I got married when I was 26. When I got married, I knew that I was trying to grow my career. So no children, grew. Got to a point I was like, okay, I'm turning 30. I need to have a child, at least the first one. At that time, I had already gone up to senior management role. Then I was able to then step back. I have a child. And then by the time I come back, I'm now moving. I'm like, okay, fine. What next? Because now I was like, I'm going to have my child close to each other. What am I going to do? At the time, I was convinced I was going to do it close to each other. But because now I wanted to go further in my career, I made a choice that, okay, I'm going to wait. I grew my career, went into another level. Then that my kids are 5 years apart. So that tells you how long I stayed in just trying to make sure that I'm actually building this career to get there. Then after that, I had my second child. Then I was able. So I think for me, I'm not saying it works for everybody. For me, it's the different choices that we make that then help us to balance what we actually need to do. On a day-to-day, which is a balance that a lot of people talk about, when do you get to work? I think we've moved away from a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever. We've moved away from that. We've moved to a space of you can do what needs to be done. You are delivering, great. If you need to go and pick up your child from school, great. You need to be able to make sure that you are balancing your life. Nobody's going to do it for you. I'm not going to come to you and say, oh, do you need to? All you need to do is come to me and say, Zuki, today, this is how my day is going. I'm going to be able to, I can't give, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. That thing that you need, I'm going to do it by this time. That's your responsibility. That for me is how you bring the balance. You own your time, but making sure that you are delivering as you are expected to deliver. Your work cannot suffer because now you've decided you want to balance. Hence, even the wellness, the piece when it comes to wellness, it's critical. We need, you know your body. You know you are overexerting yourself. You need to be able to take time and say, listen, I think, and we need to talk about it more. I actually am feeling I need time out. You need to take time out. You need to be honest with yourself and say, you know what? I need to just take time out and then come back. And it actually makes such a huge difference. Like we think we can do it. We think we can work from January to December. I can tell you, you can't. You can't. It's not possible. You actually end up working, you are on fumes. I always call it, like literally you're on fumes by the time the year ends. So for me, that's the answer. I know I went it was a bit convoluted, but ultimately what I'm saying is it's a myth. Work-life balance, think of it as a choice, and then see how in your choices you balance your life and work and family and children and friends.
Thank you for that, Zuki. I will then move on to Shanana, because Sani has got a follow-up question, but I would like to ask Shanana's question first because Sani's question is similar to what I was going to ask. So the question starts off with saying, thanks, Zuki. What is one misconception about leadership you wish more people would unlearn?
I think it's one of the things that I said. As a leader, you think you must know it all. Because it's not true. You can't know it all. And as a leader, feeling like because now you are a leader, you can't own your mistake to your team because it's more powerful. Anyways, for me, I think, for you to own a mistake in front of your team versus just and then knowing that you've made a mistake and not saying. I think your team respects you more by knowing that she's a leader because you're human. Like it's a title. That's what I'm saying. I'm here to serve. Mine is to serve and make sure that the team that I'm serving is the best team. They are delivering at their best performance. They are doing the best for themselves, their own careers, their own families. It's a place of servitude versus, oh, I now have this title, because that title is what makes it hard for you to then think, I can't say I'm sorry. But if I'm coming in and I'm like, you and I are here to work together. We've got a slogan in Vodacom that says, getting it done together. That means all of us, leader or no leader. So I think the word leader, manager, boss, these are just things that make people feel like they are far from each other when in actual fact we are in the same space. We all have the same job to do, and it is to bring profit for a business. That's our job. It's not my job. Your job is no different to my job. And how we do it is important. How I make you feel when you're doing it is important. So I think we need to unlearn this thing of thinking because I'm a leader, they can't see my vulnerability, because I think it is that vulnerability that they actually appreciate you as a leader. maybe that's what I would encourage, that we try doing that and see how your teams react to experiencing you in that way.
Thank you so much for that
But remember,
answer.
in none of what I have said has been about not expecting the best out of my team. They know I am driving a high performance team. My team knows that's what I push for. And when it's not working out, we call each other out and say, I think these guys are not doing what. So none of this is, I'm saying I'm serving, as I'm saying I am here to support. I'm saying I am not saying you're serving and everybody's just sitting and chilling. No, we are getting things done. We are working and we are performing so that this business thrives.
Thank you so much for that answer, Zuki. Sunny and I have a similar question, and the question is, please share how one would deal with a leader who leads from a position of status. This will be the last question, as we only have 8 minutes before we can wrap up our amazing session.
It's tough, right? Because first I can't personalize it, because I would struggle to personalize it, right? And I have sat with some of the people that I mentor from outside that have the same challenges. Honestly, what I can say is the ultimate thing that you can do, the person is the person, that's who they are. Yours is not to change that person. Yours is to make sure that who you are, how you show up, is you're not disrespectful. You're doing what you need to do. You're a team player. You do your best in a situation that isn't necessarily the best for you. That's honestly, that is the only thing that you can do, because what else do you do? What else do you do? Do you call out the leader who, if they lead from a place of status, they're not the type of leaders you can call out. They are not the type of leaders that you can actually sit down and say, but have a conversation. You could try have a conversation. How it lands may not be how you expect it. Sorry, if you don't mind going to unmute. How it lands, it may not.
Sorry, Zukiswa, I'm looking for who's not on mute.
I think I'm on mute. So I'm saying you can try have a conversation, but a lot of times where I've sat with somebody and say, first thing I'll say, go and have a conversation and see how you feel. They're like, no, I'm not comfortable. No psychological safety. So already, how do you move forward from that? Because if the person says, I'm not comfortable, you can't force the person to have a conversation. So the only thing that I said to them is, yours is to show up, show off through your work, be counted, and make sure that when opportunity arises for you to find something else, somewhere else, because you can't assume that the grass is greener on the other side. So you either need to learn how to make it work where you are, so that even if you move somewhere else and you find the same thing, you know how to deal with it. You show up as yourself. You don't try to be something you're not, and you perform and you go home. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Helps. I know it doesn't. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Zuki. Thank you so much for the inspiring session. And I hope you all took the nuggets from Zuki. And personally, me, as Buhle, I have learned so much. I think the most important thing, which is always a repetition, I think in our heads, what I've learned today is leading through different situations. So that is my greatest takeout from today. And to you all, I would like to thank you for joining us. And as Vodacom, we are very much happy to have shared the session with our managing executive, Zukiswa. And I wish you all happy holidays. And I hope whoever will be traveling, travel safe. And those who will be staying in Joburg, keep well. And we hope to see you all in the new year in 2026. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks again.